Please help me. My 8-year-old grandson had been missing for a week. One morning, he suddenly appeared at my house, and for some reason he looked muddy and tattered. Anyway, I have to let your mom and dad know. However, when I took out my smartphone, he grabbed my hand and stopped me hard, saying, "Don't contact them." When I heard the details from my grandson, I found out the ridiculous truth about my son and his wife, and my anger reached its peak. Oh my God, I will never forgive them. And I vowed to take revenge on them while hiding my grandson. My name is Jean. After retiring at the age of 65, I volunteered at a children's home. Come to think of it, I wonder if Curtis is doing well. As I watched the children play happily in the garden of the home, I thought about my grandson. However, I don't have much to do with my son and his wife. They didn't want me in their home, and I had barely seen my 8-year-old grandson. Even when I occasionally met him, Curtis was the type of child who didn't talk much, and he meekly followed what his parents said. He's an unusually honest and good kid for his age. At first I thought so, but gradually the situation was getting serious. "Gee, Mom, did you come without permission again? Oh, is there something wrong with me coming?" "It's not like that, but if you're coming, let us know." My son Doug always greeted me with an annoying look when I went to visit them at home. Sure, it would have been better to contact them at least, but even if I told them in advance that I wanted to go to their house, they usually refused. Still, I was worried about whether my married son was living a decent life, so I had no choice but to visit them suddenly. "I'm sorry, I didn't expect you to come, and the room is messy." My daughter-in-law, Cindy, doesn't hide her dismissive attitude. My grandson, Curtis, was washing dishes when I heard the sound of running water from the kitchen and the clattering of dishes. "Hello, Curtis?" When I looked into the kitchen and called out, Curtis turned off the water and stepped down from the step that had been climbed to wash the dishes. My grandson was somewhat nervous, and he looked up and didn't say anything, perhaps because he was confused by my visit. "Curtis, say hello to Grandma." When his father ordered Curtis, my grandson shook his shoulders and let out a hoarse voice, "Hello." Isn't that a bit too harsh? Curtis is scared. "Oh, I'm sorry, I'll be careful." My son replied with a troublesome look. "Anyway, why are you closing the curtains during daytime?" "Oh, whatever, that's it." As soon as I mentioned the curtains, my son became angry, as if he had been set on fire. I didn't understand at all what he didn't like so much. "Oh, that's it, because the weather is nice today, and the light from the outside comes in through the window. I'm not good at glare because my eyes are weak." "Oh yes, I suppose so. Then why don't you say so?" When I glared at Doug lightly, he just clicked his tongue in annoyance. "Look, Curtis. We're going to talk. So go over there." "Oh, you don't have to do that. I'm here to see Curtis." "Curtis." At the low voice of his father, Curtis turned pale and hurriedly went upstairs to the bedroom. "So? What did you come here for?" "Well, Curtis's birthday is soon, isn't it? I don't know what to present him, so I thought I'd ask him what he likes." "Oh, mother-in-law, that's so bad. Really, please don't mind him." While my son seems to be in a bad mood, my daughter-in-law seems to wait and see what my mood is like. I felt uncomfortable with this family, but at the time I still didn't know what it was. Then, with my daughter-in-law's words, "It's almost time for dinner," I was kicked out of the house that day. Curtis's attitude. It is not enough to simply be a good listener. Is it my long-standing hunch? I felt something that caught me, something that wasn't just a thing. My son and his wife refused, but I couldn't give up, so a week later, I prepared a present and went to their house again. However, the words from my son were cold. Please go home. Isn't it as good as celebrating my grandson's birthday? We don't have that main character, so I can't help it. What? What do you mean by that? When I questioned him, Doug gave me a look that said, "Oh my gosh." I thought that this was not an isolated incident, and when I asked for more information, I found that something terrible was happening. Curtis left a note saying I'm going to run away from home and had been missing for a week. We're looking for him by making posters and having the neighborhood association circulate the circulars, and we've already submitted a search request to the police. Oh my, do you have any idea why he ran away from home? It's my fault. He wanted a toy in a TV commercial. I scolded him for being a spoiled brat. My daughter-in-law, Cindy, burst into tears. But I still knew something was wrong. I wonder if he who does what he is told to do from his parents so often suddenly starts saying such selfishness. In the end, my son and his wife persuaded me that they had reported it to the police and all we can do is to wait, and I had no choice but to go home. Still, I was so worried about my grandson that I couldn't sleep. Curtis, please stay safe. Even when I went to bed, my eyes stayed awake, and I got up and drank warm cocoa. As I repeated it, it gradually became brighter outside. Then, from outside the window, Grandma, "Are you there?" I heard a weak child's voice. This voice is. When I hurriedly went out into the garden on my sandal, I saw a child looked muddy and tattered. The child was unmistakably my grandson, Curtis, and I rushed to him. Curtis. Oh, I'm glad you're alive. With hot tears running down my cheeks, I hugged him tightly, not caring about the mud. Grandma, please help me. Well, I have to let your mom and dad know anyway. Wait, don't contact them. The moment I turned to my phone to inform my son and his wife, my grandson grabbed my hand and shook his head. The frightened look on Curtis's face as he tried so hard to stop me from contacting his parents reminded me of the discomfort I felt with my son's family. Curtis, can you tell your grandma about the situation? Convinced that there was something to this, I asked to Curtis and found something outrageous. A week ago, when my grandson was suddenly taken to the mountains by my son and his wife, he was told, "We don't need you anymore," and left there. And the more I listened, the more I realized that Curtis had been treated badly by her parents on a daily basis. Oh my God, I will never forgive them. When I found out the truth, I stood up to sanction my son and his wife while hiding my grandson in my house. First of all, I decided to check the damaged situation of him. I took Curtis to the bathroom, where I took off his clothes covered in mud. I found that there were bruises and burn marks that looked like they had been pressed from a cigarette fire, just as he had told me. They cleverly aims only at the place where the clothes can hide. How vicious. I was so angry at the cunning of my son and his wife that I thought my head would boil with anger. After taking a picture of the scar and washing Curtis's body, I took him to the hospital and obtained a medical certificate. In addition, I listened more later and made detailed notes of them. If I don't obey my dad and mom, I'll always be in trouble. Curtis bit his lip with tears in his eyes. It's not that he is obedient, he's always been scared of his parents. I wondered why I hadn't noticed it before and regretted it, and at the same time felt angry with myself. I'm sorry, Curtis, if I had known earlier, I could have protected you. We were hugging each other, tears streaming down our faces. Then I left my grandson to stay home and talk to the neighbors of their house so that my son and his wife wouldn't recognize it. Doug's house, the curtains are still closed today. I then took notes of what their neighbors told me and recorded them with a voice recorder. With this preparation, I went to their house to discipline my son and his wife. Oh, Mom, we haven't found Curtis yet. If he doesn't come home soon, I'm worried, but it's already been a week, and maybe it's too late. A daughter-in-law who cries and a son who comforts her. The performance was so barefaced that I stared at the two of them with cold eyes. I'm talking about Curtis. You said that you have filed a search request with the police. That's a blatant lie, isn't it? What a sudden. It's really obvious, isn't it? Because when I spoke to the police again, they said they hadn't received such a report. My son was seeing through his lies and twitched his face, just thinking, don't do anything unnecessary. Beside him, my daughter-in-law, Cindy, had stopped crying and was clearly upset. And neighbors testified that they often heard Curtis screaming and crying from behind the closed curtains. What? Who said that? You didn't give your child hell and close the curtains so that they wouldn't see it, did you? Ignoring my son's backlash, I broached the subject. No, it's different. We were just scolding him as part of discipline. So what is this? I took some photos out of my bag and threw them on the table. What you see, there were bruises and burn marks on Curtis's body. Isn't it too much to discipline? I'd call the police. Damn it, something like this. Doug hurriedly tore up the photos and threw them away, but of course the original data is at home, so it's useless to do that. Do give it up. I've got a testimony from Curtis and a doctor's note. What? That guy is alive yet? Oh, that's a lot to say to your child. He's safe now. Have you forgotten who I am? In fact, I used to be a school teacher, so I was used to dealing with parents who made their children feel bad. Rather, I was deeply remorseful that my belief that my son would not do such a thing had left Curtis mentally and physically in tatters. Then, with lying down, my daughter-in-law shook her shoulders and suddenly began to laugh. Ahaha, we got caught. After all, you are amazing. Cindy suddenly jumped out into the hallway, so when I thought something was wrong, she grabbed a bat from the umbrella stand at the entrance and came back. Doug, we have no choice but to get rid of my mother-in-laws here. We can't help it. I'm sorry, Mom. Keep your mouth shut for the rest of your life. To my surprise, my son and his wife started aiming at my head with the bat in an attempt to silence me forever. If you hadn't treated Curtis badly in the first place, this wouldn't have happened, so why not? I've always hated children, but Cindy got pregnant, so I had to raise them. Children deserve to be at the mercy of their parents, right? I wish he could at least do the chores perfectly and be useful, but a week ago he broke my favorite plate. That's why I don't need such a child anymore. That's why you left Curtis in the mountain. I doubted my ears at the words of my daughter-in-law, who did not feel a shred of affection, and at the same time I wondered where I made a mistake in raising my son. I felt so sorry. It's no use doing this. I want you to turn yourself in peacefully. Haha, you're kidding. If my mom and Curtis are gone, everything will be solved. After we get rid of my mother-in-law, we'll take Curtis to the same place, so don't worry. Fearing for my life, I ran out into the hallway and headed for the front door, but just before I opened the door and went outside, my son grabbed me. It's time to give up, Mom. Goodbye forever, mother-in-law. We'll give your regards to Curtis. That's when my daughter-in-law swung the bat at my head. That's enough. Don't move. An acquaintance from my school teaching days, whom I had contacted in advance, came with the police. My son and his wife were seized on the spot and caught red-handed. However, as soon as they were handcuffed, the two began to weep gracefully. Wait, what will happen to Curtis when we're gone? I'm sure he'll cry because he'll feel lonely. They forgot what they have done and appealed to their emotions, but no one was going to take care of them. He'll be finally free from his bastard parents like you, and if he's going to cry, I'm sure it's tears of joy. My son and his wife were pushed into a police car and taken away while yelling at me for things I couldn't understand. After that, they were accused of treating their child badly and trying to bury me with my life. I think the two of them will be contained behind bars for a while. On the other hand, I decided to adopt my grandson and raise him as a substitute parent. Can I stay at my grandma's house from now on? Yes, of course. When I patted his head, he smiled broadly for the first time. I vowed to make Curtis happy, and we still live together. It is an important role for me to continue to watch Curtis grow in the future.